Major General Joel Vowell, a military expert with 32 years of active duty, shares his experience on the challenging security environment in the Indo-Pacific region. Amid rising tensions with authoritarian regimes like China, Russia, and North Korea, he emphasizes the importance of deterring conflict and maintaining strong alliances with countries such as Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan. Drawing parallels between the security situations in Eastern Europe and the Indo-Pacific, he stresses the critical role of US Army Japan in ensuring regional stability and preventing a catastrophic war with potentially devastating human and economic costs.
Number one, no war. It'll be catastrophic economically across the world and also just on a personal human cost. No one wants that. So this is the most challenging time I've seen in my 32 years of active duty. The Japanese, who I work with each day, consider Japan is like Poland, Philippines is like Romania, China is like Russia, Taiwan is Ukraine. That's where Japan sees their role to help prevent a conflict and defend their country. The greater threat to Japan's sovereignty is the People's Republic of China, particularly the People's Liberation Army. The People's Liberation Army would have to at least block, if not outright seize, some of those islands. Yonaguni, closest to Taiwan, about 100 kilometers from Taipei, to isolate Taiwan from an intervention by Western forces. The focus has shifted to the real problem today and tomorrow, which is protecting the sovereignty of Japan. And the foundation in this region has changed really to the PRC's unwarranted aggression. I'll just try to give everyone a little bit more perspective, what we do and who we are as U.S. Army Japan and the current regional security environment and how our Japanese counterparts in particular see that, because we live here and work with them every day. So this map is kind of what the Japanese refer to as the lid map. At the bottom of the map, you see the continent of Asia, and its orientation is to the east, to the top of the map, where you see the first island chain. Which I've drawn probably illegibly and not being able to read with a black marker, but it encompasses the northern territories from Russia, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, and keeps going down to the South China Sea. So who are we at U.S. Army Japan and what do we do? We are the stand-in force for the U.S. Army on the knife edge of freedom. That first island chain geography matters. And across that first island chain of freedom-loving allies and partners between South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan itself is three authoritarian regimes who don't have everybody's best interest in mind. We'll talk more about Russia, DPRK, or North Korea, and the People's Republic of China. But we stand in Japan along with our brothers and sisters from the Navy, the Air Force, and Marines, and provide crisis response options for any of the aggregated threats and what might happen or portend in a crisis in this region in the future. And part of that is assuring allies in the region, of which we have Japan, South Korea, and Philippines, treaty allies in the first island chain, Australia, New Zealand, of course, and not too many people know that Thailand is a treaty ally and has been since 1833 with the Treaty of Amity. So the majority of the United States' treaty allies are right here in the Indo-Pacific. We don't have a NATO construct like Europe, where almost 31 nations now are working together to deter further Russian aggression. So the assurance of allies and partners is part of what we do, but our physical presence in what we do each day is part of a deterrence, an integrated deterrence calculus of the posture of our forces, the capabilities of those forces, the signaling of what those forces can do, and lastly, the will and resolve. That little equation I just gave everyone is kind of how integrated deterrence works in the physical world. It's the posture, the capabilities, the signaling of what it can do, and the will and resolve to use that. We're part of that equation with the joint force. You can't build trust in a crisis. So being here forward deployed and stationed with our Japanese counterparts, working with them every day, they see us, talk with us, know us, we know them. And so know the boundaries of trust and what we can do together. So we call all this in the map here, the first island chain, the knife edge of freedom. Because of the freedom of movement the freedom of choice, the freedom of thought expression that these nations that we work with and live in all agree to in the rules-based international order is opposed by those authoritarian regimes I mentioned. And in fact, People's Republic of China, the pacing threat for not only my country, the United States, but as Japan articulated in their national security strategy last December, is also their ultimate challenge economically, diplomatically, and militarily in the region. And other countries agree with that sentiment. The PRC is a strategic challenge long term. And it's not original thought to say the 21st century will be defined by the challenge the PRC has against the rules-based international order.
Major General Vowell emphasizes the importance of US Army Japan's role in maintaining regional security and preventing conflict in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly with regard to the increasing strategic challenge posed by the People's Republic of China. He highlights the significance of the first island chain, which includes freedom-loving allies and partners such as Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan, who stand against authoritarian regimes like Russia, North Korea, and China. Major General Vowell underscores the crucial need for cooperation, trust, and deterrence in order to maintain stability and avoid a catastrophic war that would result in severe economic and human costs across the globe.
And so our goal in the U.S. Army Japan and my headquarters and Indo-Pacific Command, number one, no war. Any conflict in this region is going to be horrific. As we watch Ukraine and Russia on the second invasion from Russia into Ukraine now over its year since February of 22, it's horrific at scale, the loss of life and infrastructure and the uprooting of civil society that's happening. One can only project what that might mean if there were a larger conflagration or conflict here in the first island chain in the Indo-Pacific. It'll be catastrophic economically across the world, and also just on a personal human cost, something that will exceed or at least equal those of World War II, where thousands of soldiers across different formations were lost in a week, something that we're not prepared to do or not want to do. No one wants that. So going back to deterrence, no war, trying to prevent that from happening. But at the same time, my formation and my joint brothers and sisters are charged with being ready and providing options for national leadership and senior leadership in our services for those options should crisis portend into conflict. So this is the most challenging time I've seen in my 32 years of active duty. I haven't seen the security framework so distressed and disarray and challenged as it is right now in 23 across the globe. We see that heat and light here in the Indo-Pacific. All of my time as a general officer in the last 5 years has been out here forward in the Indo-Pacific. So in that 5 years, we and I personally have seen some dramatic changes. One, the People's Republic of China has just belied what they want to do and some of the statements they've made publicly in some fora like the Shangri-La Dialogue, where the foreign minister says Asia is not for Asians, it's for China. The future is China in the region. And that's okay as long as it's agreed upon, but a lot of countries don't want that and the bellicose statements that come forward. Two, the COVID response. When the PRC was telling countries to recognize them, not Taiwan, and then we'll give you COVID vaccines to help save your people, was seen with an upturned eye with a lot of countries in the region and the globe. That coercive diplomacy is seen for what it is. And lastly, in the region, the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the second invasion of Ukraine, as I mentioned earlier, has caused a lot of the folks and leaders in the region to take stock and take notice. And I see that particularly here in Japan, and I see that in the first island chain itself. And when I talk to my Japanese counterparts about lessons learned that transfer or transferable to this region from the security environment, they use the geographic model that's happening in Eastern Europe right now. And I'll go back to the map and point to it. The Japanese, who I work with each day, consider Japan is like Poland. Philippines is like Romania. China is like Russia. Taiwan is Ukraine. That's a useful tool to try to understand the security environment in Europe and where it could be a challenge similarly here in the Indo-Pacific in the first island chain. I would argue that's not exactly the national models. That don't comport exactly like that. But that's where Japan sees their role to help prevent a conflict and defend their country by having more capabilities and more ties with like-minded partners and allies like the United States, invested in exercises, invested in capabilities forward to increase that deterrence framework and help them deter in this environment.
To conclude, the current security environment in the Indo-Pacific region is highly challenging and precarious, with the potential for catastrophic consequences on a global scale. With the growing threat of the People's Republic of China, the US Army Japan and its allies are focused on maintaining peace and preventing conflict through integrated deterrence. By forging strong relationships with regional partners such as Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan, the US aims to counterbalance the authoritarian regimes of China, Russia, and North Korea, preserving the knife edge of freedom in the first island chain. The situation in the Indo-Pacific has reached a critical juncture, with lessons to be learned from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. By working closely with like-minded nations, strengthening military capabilities, and fostering trust and cooperation, the US Army Japan and its allies strive to protect their sovereignty and uphold the rules based on international order in the face of mounting challenges and uncertainties. The stakes have never been higher, and the need for collaborative efforts to secure peace in the region is more vital than ever before.